Hello and welcome to Data Girl Informs. This is a new addition to the Data Girl series where we're adding interviews with experts in the areas that Data Girl and Isla talk about to help really increase awareness, kind of push that through on a deeper level, what the topics are. I have my first guest is Sahaj, and she's a special guest because she was the one who really inspired me of the need to add the additional character Isla, who is fully focused on AI and the needs, the awareness around AI. I know, Sahaj, can you tell me a little bit more about what you've been doing in this area? How you inspired me? I'm sure you're aware of the fact that you inspired me for this.
That's very sweet of you, Angeline. Thank you for having me on the show. As your first guest, I'm really honored to be here. So, I actually met Angeline through some of mutual contacts on LinkedIn, and I found her work to be very inspiring. Like everyone talks about AI and the hype or the pros and cons surrounding it. But the thing which actually stuck out from Angeline's profile was the thing that her take, her perspective on these topics was very different to compared to what I have seen in others' posts or write-ups, or maybe even some form of media. It was a completely unique perspective. That's what inspired me to talk to her. So maybe around 3 to 4 weeks back, we had an online conversation about what I have been doing for my doctoral research, and things worked out well. And we came up with this idea of creating Isla Girl, who propagates general awareness about artificial intelligence to non-technical people. Because through our research, we have observed that people who are involved in the domain, like people who are involved in STEM, are kind of aware about the checks and balances or what they should or should not do when using AI systems. But people who do not have the background
Yeah.
or do not have the sufficient understanding about what should be done and what should not be done, for them, it becomes a little difficult to gain a handle about how things are going, especially with technologies like AI, which is emerging at a rapid, I would say even rapid is a small word given the state of
Yeah.
AI that we are sitting in. It's difficult to keep track of each and every evolving situation. Like you wake up one day and you realize that the European Union has passed an AI Act after 36 hours of negotiation.
Yeah.
You put your phone down, and several hours later, you again see a pop up on your phone that Meta has released their Llama model. So or Google has released their Gemini model. So it's such a fast moving world in terms of AI that propagating such literacy and building foundational awareness has become crucial importance, and it is the need of our. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Angeline, thank you for creating this Data Girl Inform series and for your unique presentations of the Data Girl and the Isla Girl.
Thank you. No, it's important, as you said, to make that bridge between the technical world and the business world, because I've always, I mean, always for the last 15 years, I've kind of been on the edge between the technical world and the business world. And I was hesitant to start talking about AI because that was a technical thing, and I wasn't very aware of what AI was. And I realized, no, I have to be aware of what AI is. I'm in a position to translate it for the people. And there is a sense of urgency, which I mean, fully, from research, I can feel it and see it in the people around me that they're just not aware. And that's kind of where we are with Isla and Data Girl, is that the technical community understands the need because but other people don't, especially children. I can't even imagine spending your entire life having your data collected. I mean, when I was my daughter's age, I didn't even have access to the internet for like 15 other
Yeah,
years. And they have, from when they're born, they have pictures,
they have
everything.
mobile
Yeah.
phones right into their hands. from a very early age, and hence giving them education about responsible usage of these systems is a must, I believe.
Exactly. I mean, now this kind of bridges into the specific topic we have, privacy and bias. Where do you see, based on your research, your experience, are the most urgent aspects of AI that people should be aware of in the specific area, privacy and bias?
Now, when AI systems are deployed in real world settings, even like these systems have crept into even the most minuscule aspects of our life. Let me give a very common and simple example, which is easy for all of us to relate. Like you set your alarm on your phone daily to wake up the next day. Now, if next day is a Sunday, the Siri on your iPhone gives you a reminder on Saturday, hey, tomorrow's Sunday. Do you want to set your alarm to a later time? So when does Siri come to know about this? Right? Siri is obviously an AI conversational agent, but where does it get this data from? It gets data from our behavior and what we input to it. It does not come from some abstract word, right? So even if you consider this minute example, or this is something you won't even think about, you'll probably be fascinated, like, wow, Siri remembers something which I don't. Oh, MG, it takes so much care of my schedule. So let me just set off alarm to a later time and I'll wake up with ease the next day. But you do not realize the hidden dangers behind it. Like it keeps track of each and every movement, each and every behavior of yours is being tracked. Whether you want it or not, knowingly or unknowingly, all of your data, no matter how much ever you try to protect it through encryption techniques, putting passwords, applying privacy algorithms, no matter whatever you do, there are loopholes in the existing systems. And so data is openly and easily accessible out there. And the model is as good as the data that you feed to it, right? So once the model learns about your patterns, like, okay, this person is waking up at 5 a.m. every day, but tomorrow is Sunday. So based on your pattern or the data that the model is not, you'll be waking up at 7. So they'll move a step further and suggest you that tomorrow Sunday, you should probably wake up at 7 a.m. So that's how the data goes into the systems without even your slightest knowledge.
Yeah, I think, and people aren't aware how easily they can be manipulated uh,
Exactly.
into thinking and acting in a certain way. And of course, we kind of rely on the fact that good actors with good intention are going to use the data, but obviously we know.
But that's not the case in the real world.
Exactly. And I mean, there's also, obviously, it's been, you mentioned before, the EU. The EU was the first to, I haven't read that much about it. I mean, they were first to have some kind of future law. I think it should come in 2026 or something. The first ones to set some guidelines. And of course, there was the discussion, hefty discussion about competitiveness between the different markets. Um, but
Absolutely.
but hopefully, this is kind of following on the GDPR, that people also weren't necessarily aware before GDPR, at least in the European Union, that they could turn cookies off, for example.
Yes. And that's why the compliance is like opt-in and opt-out regime, like giving users the choice to share or not share their personal data with the Apple's privacy settings is a good step forward in this direction. I don't know to what scale it's practically implemented, but at least it's a good initiative and a good step to move forward to ensure that the privacy and security of users' data is maintained and it's not vulnerable to data breaches from a third-party access.
Exactly. I mean, and these are topics that Isla has already, and Data Girl. Each episode, I think, has some aspect of privacy because that's the first and foremost that, in my view, people need to understand. What about bias? We haven't, in the series, I haven't touched bias yet, but this is also something I think, especially for the young, who, as we're saying, they're having their data collected from very young. Can you explain a little bit bias and the risks around bias in AI?
Yes, and like bias occurs in AI systems intentionally or unintentionally, because the data that we feed to the systems is a reflection of human behavior. After all, the data is collected by humans, and humans are prone to biases, whether we accept it or not, and that's ultimately
Yeah.
reflected in the data that we feed to the AI systems. And ultimately, it affects the output that we get from these systems. A very recent study that I read in New York Times just last week, maybe 4 to 5 days back, as recent as that, found that Black women were more prone to pregnancy related risk as compared to others. So where does this stem from? Or why such a thing exists? This is because there is a historical bias already existing in the data, and the model does not know that this is bias, I should not take it. No, because the model has not reached that level of intelligence yet to identify that this is biased or this is not biased. So it will work on the patterns existing in the data and give the output in a similar way. But because the data we have collected is already biased at the earlier stages of collection, it's reflected in the model's output, and hence certain groups or sections of the society remain underrepresented and they do not have equitable access to resources as they should have. During the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, uh, our iPhones had this app which tracks persons around you who are probably exposed to the COVID-19 virus.
Yeah.
And it gives you an alert that you should stay away or isolate yourself and take certain measures and those kind of things. Even with these kind of applications, it was found that they were pretty biased towards certain groups or certain gender.
Wow. And I
So
think, yeah,
that's why, yeah, there are risks arising. Like when such form of bias occurs, then there arises problems, multiple problems surrounding it, like misinformation, rumors, and all those things gradually are put on rise.
and I think also that because AI is being used more and more by businesses to make decisions, like decisions on insurance, on loans, loan
Yes,
applications, on job applications, and of course there's the possibility to counter bias in the data, but this is an extra effort and extra money. So the question is, if there's really interest to do this, right? And the
yes,
speed. I mean, so the bias,
exactly.
as you say, was always there, unfortunately. And as much as society has tried to go against the bias, to work against the bias, there's the problem that now decisions are being made rapid fire, and you don't always understand
Yes,
how the
how
decision is
or
being made.
why this decision is being made. And you raised a very good point that now with everyone adopting AI systems, people or business enterprises who do not want to adopt it, even they have this fear of FOMO. So when they try to use it without understanding the long-term consequences, they may know how to use AI, but they may not know how to use it in a responsible manner. And that's where the difference comes.
Thank you. No, I think that as what we decided, we said at the beginning, it's you can change the world with small steps as well. And our mission is to start with the youth, at least, that
Yes,
people are growing in. Hopefully, over time, the awareness also with educators, parents will increase. I'm sure it will with our efforts.
yeah, of course.
And I really love that you came and presented these topics that are so important, privacy and bias and AI, and give people an idea what kind of impact that can have. And I'm sure we'll be back for other future editions. Uh, so I don't know if you want to have some final thoughts about what people can practically do, the first step to get the awareness that they need.
Absolutely. And youth are a good population to target because ultimately, 5 years down the line, they'll be the one using these systems. So, equipping them with the right information is a crucial step to ensure that the future remains intact.
Thank you. And that's great. So I hope that everyone that's watching and is watching in the recording later has got some insight from this. You can check out Sahaj or me on LinkedIn, or you can check out Data Girl and Friends. We're so slowly expanding to different social media because that's where our target audience is.
Yeah.
So yeah, so thank you, Sahaj, and I wish
Thank you,
everyone a
Anthony.
wonderful
Yeah.
weekend. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.